I saw one fig expert say that figs do just fine in zone 8 and you don't have to do anything about it. And I said, well, what about container figs? And they said there's no problem at all as long as you're in the mid-teens, say 14, 15 degrees Fahrenheit. And that is absolutely not true. I'm looking at the weather here. This is today. I don't know why it's showing yesterday. But look, we've got some warm temperature coming up. And it's going to not dip down below freezing for the next 10 days at least. So that means that I need to take some action with the figs. So I'm looking at my computer here while I'm talking. And we've had at least 3 days, or 3 periods, I'm sorry, a couple different days during each one of those periods where the temperature got down into the single digits. And that's really cold. So I'm going to show you this here, what I use to monitor my figs. And that's this little thing here. Excuse me. And you'll see on the bottom there, I believe it says 60 degrees, the one on the very bottom of the house. Anyway, I have 3 monitors set outside, and it says it's 60 out there right now. And it's going to, as you saw, get warmer. So with the polar vortexes, I guess that's what you call it, extreme cold down to single digits, that monitor said that those container figs outside validate with local weather, like you saw on the screen here. Yeah, I got down into the single digits, but the covering with the little thermostat and heating wire that I showed you, it kept it, I would say, about 10 degrees, up to 10 degrees warmer. But we still got down close to 15 degrees for prolonged periods, like during the night. So I honestly don't know if the figs outside are even alive. But now they're starting to warm up. I want to move them back where I had them last year. And if it gets down below freezing, I mean a good bit below freezing, then I can move them into the garage. But I want to let them get outside and get a head start on the break in the warm weather. And if I leave them covered like they are, well, it'd probably be okay, but I want to inspect the figs to see if there's any dieback, to see if mice got up in there and ate the fig trees, because that's evidently something they like to do. And I provided an actual environment, a warmer environment where they'd want to get in there. So I want to inspect that and just kind of see the damage and get maybe a little bit ahead of the season on my 8 container figs. So that's my thoughts for today. And the warm weather, I check the weather every single day, but the warm upcoming weather has, I guess, inspired me or got me moving on getting my container figs that I had stored during the winter out into where they're going to sit for the season. It still looks the same as it always has since I did it this way. And you can even see the ice, it's melting. But there's been an extreme change. The last single digits was less than a week ago, and now we're getting into the 70s, so it's a big swing. But these are my figs. I'm going to disassemble it. I'll show you what it looks like. Here's the figs uncovered, and I'm going to remove the heating wire after this part here, but I'm leaving it just to inform people that may not have watched the other video that I did use a heating wire on a plug that automatically comes on. So if you want to look at the previous video to kind of catch up how we got to this point, please feel free to do so. On a 10 psi pressure reducer. Well, it is, I think today's the 23rd of April, maybe the 24th, somewhere in there. And I wanted to give it a bit of time for all of these container figs, which I have 7 different types, if I counted right or remember right. I wanted to give them a time to come out of dormancy and find out what the damage was overall and answer the question, how cold hardy are container figs? And I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, they're not very cold hardy at all. The one that did best was Chicago Hardy, and you know, that's kind of a given. If you watch a lot of people out there, you talk about the I believe they're called Mount Etna types. You got the Chicago Hardy, the Red Lebanese, Becca Valley, you got Azores Dark, and various figs that are similar to that, and they taste very similar. But anyway, those are pretty cold hardy, more so than the majority of other figs. And so I don't have a lot of experience to tell you which ones are the best cold hardiness, but I can tell you and show you that what these figs did, and I'll go by variety, container by container, and show you the results of what happened. Now, if you haven't seen my first video, I put these figs into winter, I guess you'd call it storage. It's not really storage, but I put a wire, a heating wire that you use to keep ice melted in gutters and stuff like that, and I put a plug that automatically turns it off and on at temperatures. And so I had an advantage. And as you probably have seen in the video, we did get some single digits a few times, and we did get a lot of temperatures around the mid-teens. So I did have some exposure here in zone 8A, and received a lot of damage on the trees. Most of the trees were damaged all the way down to the root base. Fortunately, they all came back from the roots, and a couple budded out from the very bottom of the trunk where the heating wire was located, and the Chicago Hardy, well, anyway, you'll see it. So I'm just going to say that if you're going to have container figs and you want to go to the trouble of growing them and keeping them, especially if you're in a cold environment, just don't trust anything out there, pretty much anything anybody says, because there's lots of variables. There's microclimates. There's people that are talking out their backside and they don't know really what they're talking about. Maybe they got lucky, what have you. I would just say, look at videos like mine here, see the outcomes and what they've experienced, and then you'll have a base of how to make your decision on what you're going to do with your containers. I put a lot of work into these. If I had to do it again, I would have brought these in the garage, and I was going to do that, but I saw one fig expert say that figs do just fine in zone 8 and you don't have to do anything about it. And I said, well, what about container figs? And they said there's no problem at all as long as you're in the mid-teens, say 14, 15 degrees Fahrenheit. And that is absolutely not true. Confirmed with other people that are in my zone this year. I've watched several videos well, a couple videos this year and some last year, where you get people in zone 8 and even higher. I'm in 8A, you get 8B, and I've even seen some 9 where they've had dieback in ground all the way to the ground. And I'm not talking about first year trees like mine are. I'm talking about 3, 4-year-old trees, dieback all the way to the ground. And of course, in most of those, they came back from the roots. Now the problem with that is when it comes back from the roots, there's not, I gotta hit the, there we go, so I can see what you see. When it comes back from the roots, there's a delay between the, you're gonna delay your harvest, if you even get a harvest. Not to mention all the work you put into pruning it and trying to make it, in my case, tree shape or whatever the case may be. My recommendation to you is err on the side of caution. Put them in a more controlled environment instead of taking a chance because someone else said so. It's better to look at a wide range of experience and make a more wise decision. So with that, I'm going to grab the camera and I'm going to go variety by variety, and I'll show you what happened to that particular variety with the way I stored it. Now I've got another video on showing exactly how I stored it and all that, so you can take a look at that in comparison to the outcome. I'll start with this one. This is what I call my Franken fig. I had 2 Adriatic JHs, and what I did was I grafted onto them and it never completely died back, so I have growth at the top. Now the grafting wasn't a success like I'd like. Several of them didn't take, but that's a whole nother video. So essentially this is my first fig. Now this is Black Madeira KK, and it had some that grew out from the bottom of the trunk all the way up to about right here. It looks like this one right back here might be coming out too. So about right here, and you can kind of see where it gets dead. Here it gets dead, where it is dead. So about right here is probably where I end up having to cut it later on, but I'm still gonna leave it for a while. Also, it grew up in a few little places here from the roots. So I'm gonna keep all of that. This is a variety that I wanna propagate in the future. So Black Madeira KK, supposedly a late fig that doesn't tolerate the cold very well, but I can tell you in comparison to some of these others, it did just fine. This is Italian 258, and I was worried about this one for a little while. It did not pop up in, I don't see any shoots anywhere on the bottom here, but it did come back from the trunk up to about, well, right in here somewhere. So all this up here died back, and that's unfortunate, but thank goodness it started shooting from the base of the trunk here. It's kind of weird. I think it's the only one that didn't grow back. Well, the one next to it didn't either. That didn't grow back from the roots. It did shoot out from the bottom here, and this is supposedly a top tier fig too. Haven't tasted it yet, but at least it came out from the trunk here, and it's going to continue to survive for another day. Now this is my other Adriatic JH fig, and it's the second one. And so I had 2 of these, and it did similar to the I-258. It came back from the base here. It looks like 3 different places it sprouted from the bottom here. And if it was going to be okay, the heat wire was around the bottom here, and if it was ever going to be okay, it would have been at the base here. Now the rest, just like Italian 258, dead. So my original plan was to top it here, and then it should have sprouted many different branches, which I would make into scaffolds and make nice little trees. Well, I'm not going to be able to do that with any of these figs, unfortunately. So it's kind of changed my direction with what I'm going to do with these container figs, but that's for another video. All right, this one's kadota, and kadota had a little bit of a mixture. There was a couple that branched off of the base. Maybe it was just one. No, there's another one back here. So it had a couple that branched off the base here, but it also had a few that came out from the roots as well. So it also survived, and the entire stick going up dead. This one is disappointing to me. I really don't understand it because the trunk looks nice here. I haven't even done any scratch tests, and well, it looks like it's still alive, but there's no branching on it. Now this is Violet de Bordeaux, and it came out from the ground, or the roots, all around here except for this one place here. Well, it looks like there's a couple way down at the very bottom here that's also coming out from the trunk. So I have no idea why the rest of this trunk didn't start branching or putting shoots out. It looks like it's dead from here up for sure, but the rest did not produce any. So I'm not going to trim any of these back for a little while. I'm probably another month or so, and let all these others take hold really nicely, and then I'll cut them back. And I'm just too anxious. Well, I'm concerned that I would cut it back, and then, you know, I could have gotten more branching from the actual main stem. This one's Louisiana Purple, and it is a beast from the ground, let me tell you. It looks like there's one that came out here on the stalk, or the main stem here, but most of it looks a couple more on the very bottom there that also came out from the stem. But man, look at all those shoots that came out from the roots. So Louisiana Purple is not a premier fig. They have a cult following almost, it seems like. A lot of people like the LSU figs, and I don't know yet because I haven't tasted them. But anyway, I've got a lot of opportunity here for Louisiana Purple. Hopefully my season's long enough to get some fruit. This is Black Mission, dead all the way down. It looks like it's kind of alive right in here, but it's not really shooting much from the stalk. It looks like maybe one right here at the very, very base coming out of the ground, and that one maybe too. But it also came up over here a little bit further away, which I'm happy for. So Black Mission, and I would have never thought that it would have had this is probably my worst tree out of all the ones I've talked about so far. I've only got one more, but yeah, you would think, I don't want to scrape it, I'll just be patient. But anyway, it's not coming out except here, and one from the roots over here, and I'm thankful it's still alive. I just went down the line here, and the last fig I have is Chicago Hardy, and Chicago Hardy is sprouting from the main trunk here all the way up. It's not aggressive, and I've got something that's boring into it, making a little frass here. So I don't know how high up it's going to end up being, but I know I want to make sure that whatever's boring into figs here doesn't take hold and kill off the tree. Now I've got one over here. I was concerned. I want to try to make this one a little bit of a tree if I can grow branches from the opposite sides here. It'll be lower, but it's still doable, and that was my original plan all along there. But also down here, Chicago Hardy put out one or two from the base as well. So I'm really happy with Chicago Hardy. Chicago Hardy is one of the two I got to taste, and it was fantastic in my opinion. And it was the one that made me go, oh my gosh, figs, where have I been my whole life on figs? And the other one was Adriatic JH, which was also fantastic and completely different. And I was like, man, if these two different figs taste this awesome, I'm in the game. Anyway, that's the last of the figs here. Those are all of them. I did have an avocado tree here. It doesn't look like it's coming up from the trunk. Now this was in my garage and it never got much below 50. But it died back completely, but it shut up 2 sprouts here from the roots, and I'll probably just pick one and try to grow it as a tree again, but keep it in a warmer location than the garage. I don't know why I'm doing the avocado. It just seems interesting. I always wanted to grow an avocado from a tree and see what happens. So the wood boring bothered me, so I went and cut out all the damage. And I cut back all the way till I saw green on all the figs. You can see the various levels. So it's always something. I thought figs would be trouble-free. And they are temperamental and cold, and they have pests that get to them also. That'll end this video. Thank you for watching. I appreciate a thumbs up, like. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. I do some interesting stuff here, a little different than others. Until the next video, take care.